Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Sean Burke, the Chief Revenue Officer of Kite Desk. Welcome, Sean. How are you?
I'm great, Lori. Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to be in a Google Hangout. I haven't been in one for a little while, so hopefully all will go well. Um, can you tell us a little bit about what Kite Desk is for those that don't know, and then I'm going to go on with my story about how I met you and so forth.
Sure. So Kite Desk is we're a plugin for Salesforce, and we help salespeople with intelligent prospecting and social selling. And our key, three key value propositions are: number one, we help salespeople reduce the time that they spend in their CRM. Number two, we help them get more. We help their close ratio by helping them get warm introductions into people that they already know within their company. And number three, we give them sales intelligence wherever they're at. If they're on LinkedIn or on their email or even on a website, we help give them sales intelligence wherever they need it. So that's what Kite Desk is.
Great, and you and I met through a couple of different ways. One is you gained some visibility through a study that you did about social selling influencers, of which I was pleased and thrilled to be one of. And also we met up at the AAISP, Association for Inside Sales Professionals in Chicago, the leadership conference, and you gave a presentation called and I'm going to look at the World's Youngest Billionaire's Guide to Social Selling, which I thought was a different title. That's why I chose to attend it. And I thought it was interesting. I was sitting through that presentation, and it hit me. Several things caused me to think of a number of questions, and I thought this is really worthy of a discussion with sales professionals and sales leaders, because the world of selling has changed, as everyone has talked about, but you have a little different strategy in that your suggestion is, yes, it has changed, let's get over it, because we all know that. However, why not take some of that power or some of the ideas that our buyers are now doing and harness it for ourselves to be up to speed with our buyers. And I thought that was a really good place to, a good place to be as a seller, instead of feeling helpless, like, well, we've lost everything. And maybe you could talk a little bit about how you came up with that concept, and how buyers really haven't changed, have they?
No, it's actually interesting the way I came up with it. You and I live in the world of stats, and literally I had seen a stat go across my desk no less than like 100 times. And it was a stat that everyone in the sales industry has probably seen, is that the buyer's journey is completed. 60 to 70% of the buyer's journey is done before they ever engage sales. And the first thing that it came to mind is I say, okay, so what? I mean, like, that's the first thing that I said is, okay, if that's the case, we could argue that. I mean, I know that most of our clients have never heard of us before we talk to them, so it wouldn't apply to me.
Right.
But then I said, there's a bigger issue here, and in order for us to be able to, I'm not going to say that that's a problem, but in order for us to address it from the sales and marketing end, we need to go to the root of it. So I just spent some time looking back from the buyer's journey, and what I came up with was that the buyers really didn't change, they reacted. And really what kicked it all off, and why the title was The Young Billionaire's Guide to Social Selling, is that it really started back in 1999 when Google put the little search bar out. The entire world of sales and marketing changed, and that's what my entire premise was about the presentation, is that they started using it, and then B2B companies started to respond. So we put Google Ads out there, then people got tired of Google Ads, and then we put content out. And so literally this new buyer's journey was created by Google, but really we facilitated it, the B2B sales and marketing leaders and the sales teams. And the way that we got here is the way that I'm going to talk about today, that we gain the upper hand, as we said in the invitation, is they have data, but guess what? We have data too, and oh, by the way, I think we have more data. So that's how we all came to be. So
yeah, I thought that was That was very empowering to feel like, hey, I have data too. That's great. I can also be in this contest. I can also be up with the buyers. And I thought that was really, it was an empowering feeling when I left there. And in fact, we want to have this interactive, and if anyone has questions, they can type in the group chat box. I think it's in the upper left-hand corner, if I'm not mistaken. And we will take questions at the end. But Sean, you have 5 points that you wanted to cover to this end about how we can kind of help anticipate buyers' moves and maybe develop some teaser content and things like that. So I'm going to just turn it over to you to share your points, and then we'll have some Q&A.
Great. Yeah, so we have 5 key points that I shared, and one of the things that I'm going to strive to do in this, and Lori, you can hold me accountable to it, is I don't want to talk stats. I want to talk proof points. So every single one of these 5 areas at Kite Desk, we've actually have proof points around them, and I'm happy to share those at the end. So the first point is, and there's 5, is that you really need, as a salesperson and then somebody in sales and marketing, to create teaser content. And what that means is you have to get people excited, either on your website or the content you share, or a blog post, or wherever you're going to get a lot of people visiting, is you need to get them excited that something big is going to happen, or something is happening to them, and they need to do something about it. So when I talk about teaser content, there's really a couple points on how you would want to do that. Mm-hmm. And the first one is you have to introduce the topic to the group. So we teased a little bit in this one as we talked about how you could take the upper hand. And so a lot of people in sales feel like they want to take the upper hand. And so then you introduce the topic, then what you want to do is build momentum. Is get people excited about the idea, make them feel empowered, like you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And in marketing, you can do that by giving them either something that's exclusive that nobody else can get, or something that is free. If you wanted to create some type of urgency, you can do it with, hey, there's a limited time offer, it's only available during this time. But what I prefer to do is to share amazing results, things that people, when they see it, they go, oh man, I really want that result. I want to increase my sales by 20%, or I want to spend, less time prospecting, and I don't want to pick up, the phone every single time without data, in my hands. And so you got to build that momentum, and then finally you've got to make it easy for them, once they're excited and once they're engaged in the information, to reach out to you. So an easy call to action: click here, download this, fill out this simple form. Contact me today. And so that's tip 1.
Okay, great.
Next, the next tip we have, which is how you and I actually met, is through gathering influencers. So in every industry, there are a group of people who are talking about that subject. So influencers can help you in a lot of ways, and there's some tools that you can actually use to find influencers. So let me give you a couple tips in this area. Number 1, if you're following in social media or on LinkedIn your clients or your prospects, pay close attention to the articles that they share, not just the content, but the authors. If they're sharing consistent authors or influencers, LinkedIn now has the influencer network that you can tap into. Right. Look at what they're talking about, right? So I'm sure people are following you. I mean, a few people are following me right now, but see who they're talking to and try to start building a relationship with influencers. And so that's how we met. In fact, we released the top 100 social selling influencers, and you were on that list. Right. I'd just be curious, I mean, as an influencer yourself, do you have people reach out to you? I mean, I have some key points into this too, but I'd just be curious, Lori. We haven't really talked about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've written a number of posts about how sales professionals can become an influencer in their industry as well. And I think it's a great strategy. It takes a little bit of work and focus, but so do trade shows and anything else that you're doing in your sales company to grow visibility and grow business. But yeah, absolutely. Talk to people every day about how they can position themselves. And I think one of the first steps is to find thought leaders in your space. I think you might have mentioned that. And start listening to what they're talking about and who they're referencing. That's how I started blogging 10 years ago. I had no idea what to write, and so I just started looking at what other people in my industry of B2B sales, what they were talking about, and I found influencers and I started following them. Now today, most of them are my friends and colleagues, which is great.
That is great. We actually, when we did the research, I don't know that you and I talked about this, but when we did the research to come up with our list, we looked across a couple things that I think would be valuable to the people listening today. Number one is there's a tool out there called Get Littlebird. And Get Littlebird, what you can do is you can type into their search area a term, like we typed in social selling, that's how we found it. And it will give you the top-rated influencers around that term. So, if you're in, automotive parts, you type in automotive parts, and whoever has the largest audience and talks the most about that subject, they will be ranked in order in that area. And so that was one piece of the research we did. We did a lot more than that. But when you work with influencers, what we tend to do is, first of all, they can help you in a lot of different areas. So, for example, they can help you identify some of your client challenges because they work with them on a regular basis. We've actually reached out to our influencers to help crowdsource our product development because they're looking ahead. They know where the future's going. So if you enlist their help, they can help you build a product that's in advance of where their clients may need. Additionally, they can help you with business development because if they're drawn to what you're doing, they can help introduce you to people that would be interested in what your product is. They can also help you educate the market like we're doing today, talking, and then also they can help you amplify your message. So, and I'm happy to discuss what we did there if people have questions on it, but influencers can really help you get a step ahead of the game, which is one of the reasons why people we're talking today.
Right, absolutely. And then you talked about sales hacks.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So
tell us what a hack is.
Yeah. So the way we look at Kite Desk at sales hacks is, first of all, they're very low cost. Typically, technology companies use them, but they're very analytical. And so what you do is, and they're involved in like social the web. So a good sales hack, it doesn't cost you a lot. It's not to maybe a huge market.
Is this kind of like MacGyver for sales?
It is. I'll give you some specific things that we do, and there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. So let me, when we were looking at going to market, we tested, A&B tested across Twitter, across LinkedIn, and across some surveys, different messages that we could, talk about when it relates to Kite Desk. And so we would test, intelligent prospecting and social selling. We would test social selling against sales intelligence. And so we'd look at all the different terms that apply to our industry and test them against each other and see how receptive people are to each of those messages. And once you've done that a few times, you'll get a clear leader on which one's the most interesting. And so in our case, social selling was by far the most interesting topic that salespeople wanted information on. So if you go to our website, it's right there. I mean, we're big into social selling. Another sales hack that we use is we use Google Trends. So we typed all these terms into Google Trends, and we checked to see if they were progressing and which ones were moving faster. You don't want to get on a term that's going downwards. You want to find the terms that are growing in their interest. And then finally, which takes a little bit more effort, we talked to them. So we did a voice of a customer survey to people that matched our profile clients, and we just asked them. We asked them questions about what are their challenges, what are they interested in, what problems are they trying to solve, and instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, we went out to them, and we got, actually Jim Keenan helped us with this, and we had some other people that worked with us, and it was great, the information we got back. And so those are the three that we've really used within Kite Desk, and they're not expensive, and they're really great to get information before you invest a lot of your time and energy trying something. You can kind of try before you buy in this way.
Fantastic. And then your fourth point is about Moneyball.
Yeah. So, yeah, I hate to use sports terms, but I couldn't find an analogy that was anywhere close to this. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I use Moneyball. And I actually saw, it's funny, before our event, I saw somebody who posted something out about Moneyball related to recruiting. But
yeah,
really, for us, Moneyball is about data. And one of the things that we have found is that there's so much more data within companies that they have that they didn't even realize that they have. So think about this. Think about just your email. Is Do you have across the board within a company every single email contact that exists, and CRM contact, and LinkedIn contact? As a company, how many companies do you think actually have every single one of those contacts in one space?
I would say very few.
Very few, right? So just
Yeah,
pulling together all of the relationships that exist in the business is a huge value, because you don't know if your CFO is playing golf with your best customer or your best prospect, right? That
right.
data is just sitting there. And there's tons more that you can get. For example, a sales leader may want to know, if my sales reps send 10 emails out, how many emails are they getting back to show if a deal's really in play?
Hmm.
There's so much more information there. And so one of my recommendations that I give to companies is, don't try to do everything in one day, is take two different sales opportunities. So take a win and take a loss, and have someone on your team gather every single piece of data that they can about that win and that loss from your
Yeah,
marketing automation tool, your CRM, your email, and just plot it out and see if you find any differences there. And if you do, start talking with the team about it, and then expand your scope from there and use this to get smarter about your customer acquisition, because I guarantee you there's something different in between the win and the losses, if you look across all that data, that you can learn from.
right, right. And I mean, going back to the original comment you made about just knowing who all your contacts are would be so huge for any business, because of that fact that we're about 4 degrees away from anyone. And, LinkedIn has it right the way they are trying to get companies, employees to all connect to each other so that you can see who you're connected to. It would amaze people to see some of the relationships that they don't normally expect. So that's a great point.
Yeah, that's and there's so many more that we could touch on there, but I think just keeping it simple. And salespeople could do this. I mean, you don't have to be a sales leader to do this. Just take your last deal that you won and your last deal that you closed, and be honest about it. Like, look at every email that you sent, every call that you made, who you contacted, who was at the meeting. Look at titles. Look at every single piece of data that you can have about those two things. And I'm telling you, they will find something. And I'll give you an example of this. We actually found in one of our accounts that we were working with one person, the dreaded single-threaded opportunity.
Yeah.
And and by just going what we call up and out, we went higher in the org chart and out. We ended up turning a deal that was about ready to be lost into a trial within 2 hours. And actually, that's one of my proof points that I was going to share at the end. But it is true. Like, if you just dig in and look at information, you can find things that will help you, impact your sales today.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. And then your last point is about scheduling time, and I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so this is a little close to my heart. I think sometimes with our busy schedules, we forget that one of the best assets that we have as leaders, as salespeople, in any role that you have within a company, is you've got some client. Unless you're like day one, you have clients there. And the best source of data to help you keep ahead of your clients is your current clients. So this has kind of been something that I've pushed myself on, kind of like my own personal goal, is that I want to spend 60 minutes a week just talking with one of my clients, asking them, not selling them. I'm not trying to pitch them on anything. I just want to know what's going on. What are the challenges? What's going on in the political environment in your company? How are sales? Any information that I can get to help me understand their world will help
Mm-hmm.
me better solve their problems in the future. And if you do this enough and bring that information back to your team, what you hope to uncover is a series of, I wouldn't call them trends, but buckets, right? Buckets of challenges or buckets of opportunity where your product specifically can help those clients out. And
Right.
and then you can, as a team, help try to address them in your sales process, in how you share content. All of these 5 tips that I'm sharing with you are kind of reinforcing. They help each other out. You can run them back through your influencers, right? You can take these challenges and this data that you find and have your influencers give you information on them. So I'd love to hear too if anybody's doing this. I mean, I don't know, Lori, do you? I mean, I think this would be interesting to see if people are actually spending time talking to their clients and not trying to pitch them on anything.
Oh yeah, I mean that's really a strong thing that we talk about to our prospects, is that the percentage of time you're talking about pitching anything should be very small compared to the fact that I really want to learn more about my buyer's world, and I want to know where they go. Like you said, I want to know what they're reading, and I want to know what the challenges are and what a day in the life of them is like, because I can help better that way if I can understand them. And I think some salespeople are just so focused on their pitch that they forget that they're dealing with someone that has a lot of issues going on, a lot of problems and challenges and aspirations and hopes, and it would be great to make time to learn those things, and I think that that's what the good sales professionals do now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of people have read the Challenger sale, and
Yeah.
we've all taken away key points on that. But one of the things that strikes me about this conversation that we're having now is the idea of a personalized insight. So, it's not enough just to have insights on the company as a whole, but in each role, think about what your product or service can do to elevate that person individually and that piece of the business, because most companies that are selling B2B are they sell across departments now, and their impact is across departments. So if you don't have value propositions that you can readily share at each department, I'd encourage you to go back and have that ready, because people will say, hey, that's great for IT, but what does it do for me in sales, right?
Right. I actually had someone tell me that today, like, oh, we don't need all that customized messaging, do we? We just need our pitch. And I said, no, we need it. It needs to have some value to the person that's receiving it, because otherwise they're not going to be interested. It has to impact them in ways that will help them do their job better, or help them with a better quality of life, or whatever the proposition is. So absolutely. So Sean, I was wondering, can you talk about any other content ideas, and we can see if we have any questions. I don't see any, but I may not be looking in the right place.
Yeah, I'll wrap with 4 or 5 of the proof points
Oh,
that
great.
we talked about, and then we could talk a little bit about content. So,
Fantastic.
if we look at number 1, so I call it like the storytelling in the teaser, is a proof point on how that works. So the reason why we're talking today is I told a story at the AAISP. It wasn't a pitch. I mean, I told a story about how you can get an upper hand in sales, and now you and I are in a webinar sharing this information today. So that's proof point 1. It does work. Number 2 is it relates to influencers. When Kite Desk wanted to share our message with the world, we also thought it was very, very important for people to understand the conversation that was happening in social selling. So we went out and tapped the top 100 social influencers in the world, and for the 3rd week of March, our article on the top 100 social sellers was the number 1 most popular Forbes article across every article that was live. And that's during the Malaysian flight incident. There was a lot of news going on that week, and we were shocked that it got that much press.
Yeah, well, you're dealing with influencers.
It is, yeah. And
we were all talking about it.
The biggest win for us was when we heard people say, Kite Desk, thank you for, we did this little thing where you could follow all the influencers on Twitter. I got more comments on that from you or from people who listen to influencers than I mean, most of the influencers were congratulating each other, and that was great. I mean, we're totally happy for that, and I'm sure a lot of people they got a lot of interest in their own business from that. But what we really thought was a big win is whenever people said, look, I can with one click follow every one of these influencers, and a lot of people did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You made it easy for them.
Yeah, that's a simple tip to do.
Yeah.
So on the sales hacks, that's how we came up with social selling. So that was a proof point there, is we use that to help generate that interest and create that the influencer network. I told you about the Moneyball example where we did a 2-hour flip. We went up and out and turned a deal from the person saying no into a trial opportunity. Right. And then the 60 minutes is the one that I'm most proud of. So last week we did a training with an existing client. And I knew almost every time we do a training with the client, they get more interested in our product. But this one was a little surprising. We did training for our existing clients, and they immediately, the next day, reached out and said, we'd like to increase the amount of business we do with you by over 400%. And so that was an incredible, and we weren't selling them on anything. We were just showing them how to use the product. It was about 60 minutes. So those are the 5 proof points. I think I've been okay on not sharing any stats. So
yeah, good job. If I could just ask one more thing, Sean, again about content. What do you think about video? What do you think about other types of content? And how can a busy executive or sales professional do this?
Yeah, so our view, I mean, so the first thing on content is video is by far the most downloaded, the most watched content out of any that you can do. I mean, so people will, if they see a post and there's video in it, they will go to video before anything else, even a hyperlink or anything like that. So if you want to incorporate video in your storytelling or in your teaser content, my suggestion would be is to keep it simple. I mean, it doesn't take much to open up a Google Hangout like this, hit record, and have a client conversation that tells a story about what you've done together, and you post that live. Now, it may not be pretty, but at the end of the day, if the story is compelling, then it doesn't have to be neat and sexy and seem contrived. I think it's more genuine when you do it live and real, and there's, it's not perfect, but people really get the message there, and they can see how people respond. They can see their face light up. They can see, the real, what's really happening behind it. So I don't think you have to be too complex with what you're doing, but definitely put out a lot of content. I mean, it's an investment. I mean, if you're not willing to put in a lot of time and energy on putting out content, my suggestion is don't do it. I mean, you've got to stick with it.
Would you say that a business today is in the publishing business, any business?
Well, I think LinkedIn has showed it even at an individual level. They released their own blog platform, right? So I would say it's more than just businesses. It's down to an individual now that we're all becoming, publishers, and we have the potential of being thought leaders. And, I think, well, I'm going to stay away from stats. I'll be good. So I won't give out the stat, but there is a stat out there that IBM put about the amount of data that was created in the last 2 years. I would encourage you all to look for it.
It's a big number.
It's a big number.
That's great. Well, we can always take more questions through either of our emails. I guess that would be a good point. Sean, what's your email, and then I'll give out mine.
Sure. It's sburke, SBURKE, @kitedesk.com, or you could catch me on Twitter with Sean, which is SEAN _H_Burke, and that's my Twitter handle for people who like to use Twitter.
That's great, and I am on Twitter at @ScoreMoreSales. I'm Google Plus at ScoreMoreSales, and I also am found at ScoreMoreSales.com, Lori at ScoreMoreSales. So, Sean, thank you so much for your time today. It was great learning more about your presentation, and I know I'll have even more questions beyond this as it relates to helping our sales professionals and sales leaders really win with some of these tips.